"Get down, Your Highness!" The shout tore through the chaos, raw and desperate, just before the air burned white. The plasma bolt screamed across the hall, a streak of death meant for the silver-haired princess standing frozen by the shattered throne. It struck something else, someone else. Private Eli Raine had moved without thinking. His armor flared, screamed warnings, and then burst apart in molten shards as the impact hurled him backward. He hit the marble floor hard enough to crack it. For a second, no one moved. Even the invading soldiers hesitated. Smoke curled from his chest plate. The smell of scorched metal and human flesh hung heavy in the air. Eli's voice rasped through the comms. "She's still standing, right?" The princess, Lisa Varin, heir to the Varin dominion, stared in disbelief. Her luminous eyes flickered with confusion, then something dangerously close to human fear. "Why would you?" The enemy commander barked a command. The pause ended. Blaster fire lit the room again. Lysera's guards dragged her toward cover. Eli rolled, groaning, half his armor slagged off. His left arm didn't move. He still managed to raise his rifle. Every pull of the trigger was agony, but he kept firing. 1 hour earlier, they'd said it was a diplomatic mission. Human alliance troops had been assigned to protect the Varin royal court during peace talks. It was supposed to be symbolic. Unity between species, the press had called it. Eli thought it was a babysitting job. He'd been stationed near the throne room doors, bored and counting the minutes. The Varin palace was made of light and glass, built by a race that found beauty in perfection. Humans looked clumsy among them, too rough, too scarred. Lysera had noticed him earlier that morning. The alien princess's gaze lingered longer than he liked. "You carry yourself like someone who's lost too much," she'd said softly. "Just doing my job, ma'am," he'd replied, and then the explosion tore through the western gates. Now the royal palace was a war zone. The enemy, the Drax coalition, Varin rebels armed with human black market tech, had broken through faster than anyone expected. Eli's squad was cut off. Comms flickered with static. He'd taken position by the dais, protecting the princess as waves of attackers pushed through the grand hall. He'd seen one of them raise a heavy plasma launcher, aimed right for Lysera. And he'd moved, instinct, no thought, just a blur of motion. Now he was bleeding inside his armor, vision swimming, smoke rising from the wound. "Eli," someone shouted over the comms. It was Sergeant Corrin, his squad lead. "You're hit. Fall back." "Negative," Eli croaked. "She's still here." Lysera looked at him, jaw trembling. Her kind didn't cry, not physically, but the dim shimmer in her eyes was the same as tears. "You foolish human," she whispered. "Why would you give your life for mine?" "Because someone's got to make sure peace doesn't die before it starts," he said, voice fading. Then came another blast, closer this time. The throne collapsed in a cloud of crystal dust. Lysera ducked, clutching Eli's arm. "You can't stay here," she said. He tried to smile. "Don't worry. Humans are tougher than we look." The ceiling trembled. The rebels were breaking through the last defense doors, and in that moment, beneath the falling shards of alien glass, with fire and smoke painting the throne room red, Eli Raine forced himself to his knees, rifle in his good hand, and stood between the princess and the storm. "Let them come," he muttered. "As long as I'm breathing, she's safe." The palace shook again. Lysera looked up at the wounded soldier before her, and something ancient stirred behind her luminous eyes. Something her people hadn't felt in centuries. Respect and fear of loss. Because the human wasn't just guarding her. He was dying for her. Smoke poured through the shattered archways. The once perfect hall of crystal now burned with flickering orange light. The air tasted like ash and ozone. Lysera Varin stood amid it all. Royal robes torn, silver hair tangled, eyes wide and glowing faintly like twin stars. Around her lay her guards, most fallen. Only one human still stood between her and the advancing enemy. Private Eli Raine, bleeding, half his armor melted, raised his rifle again. "You need to run," he rasped. "The escape corridor's still open." Lysera shook her head slowly, disbelief shadowing her expression. "You took a plasma strike for me. No one from your species has ever done that." "Guess we're full of surprises," he said with a weak grin. A tremor shook the palace. Debris fell in showers of light. Through the far breach, the Drax rebels advanced, tall, armored, carrying the sigil of a broken star. Their leader's voice thundered through the hall. Hand over the air, human, and we'll let you live. Eli coughed blood into his helmet mic, switched it off, and muttered, "That's a lie if I've ever heard one." He looked to Lysera. Her people had once ruled half the sector, but the years had made them soft. Politics, diplomacy, ritual, those were their weapons now. Not courage, but something had changed in her gaze. Something fierce. "If I run," she said, "then your sacrifice means nothing." "If you stay," he replied, "it means I failed." For a moment, neither moved. Only the sound of the fires filled the hall. Flashback. 2 hours earlier. Lysera had studied humans all her life. Strange, chaotic creatures who fought over everything, yet found beauty in imperfection. Her tutors had warned her. They are dangerous, impulsive, and will trade loyalty for survival. And yet, this soldier, Eli Raine, had thrown himself in front of her without hesitation. No negotiation, no logic, just instinct. In her heart, something began to shift. Maybe the humans weren't dangerous because of their rage. Maybe it was because of their love, their maddening ability to care for someone they barely knew. Now Eli's rifle sputtered dry. He tore the power pack from a fallen guard's weapon and slammed it in. The rebels were closer, 30 meters, 20. He turned to Lysera. "When I say move, you head for that side hall. There's an evac tunnel behind the tapestry. Don't argue. You can't hold them alone." You'd be surprised how stubborn humans get when they're out of options. Lysera stared at him like someone seeing the shape of destiny, and hating it. "Eli," she said softly, her voice trembling. "If I go, will you follow?" He smiled, teeth red with blood. "If I make it out of this, I'll follow wherever you go, princess." Her hand hesitated, then brushed his arm. A silent promise, a silent goodbye. The rebels opened fire. Plasma bolts screamed through the hall. Eli moved on pure training, diving, rolling, firing bursts. The recoil burned through his broken ribs. Each bolt that missed Lysera tore another scar into the palace walls, but none reached her. When his rifle overheated, he drew his sidearm. When that jammed, he threw it aside and picked up a fallen enemy's gun. He kept fighting, he kept standing. Because if she fell, humanity's word, his word, would mean nothing. A blast rocked the chamber. One rebel tossed a thermal grenade. Eli threw himself over it, armor taking the brunt. The shockwave hurled them both into the wall. Lysera crawled toward him, shaking. Eli, stay with me." He groaned, eyes half open. "Still here." Through the dust, the rebel commander stepped forward. His armor was black and jagged, his visor glowing crimson. "You've delayed the inevitable, human," he sneered. "The Dominion dies tonight." Lysera rose, her form trembling, light gathering faintly in her hands. "No," she said, voice rising. "Not while I stand. Not while he still breathes," the commander laughed. You are no warrior." And then her glow intensified, pure, white, searing. Eli blinked through the haze, stunned. "What are you doing?" Lysera's voice was distant, almost divine. "Something my ancestors forgot how to do." The air began to hum. The glass of the palace trembled. She knelt beside Eli, her hand resting on his chest plate. "You gave me your courage, human," she whispered. "Now I'll give you mine." Light flowed from her palms, weaving through his broken armor like threads of fire. Eli gasped, the pain receding, wounds closing. Energy burned in his veins. Lysera smiled faintly. "If they want to fight, we'll give them one." And for the first time in 1,000 years, a Varan princess stood ready to go to war beside a human. The air shimmered. The light that poured from Princess Lysera's palms was not gentle. It was fierce, alive, and ancient, something that hadn't been seen since before her ancestors reached the stars. The rebels faltered as the floor itself began to hum. Cracks of blue-white energy raced across the marble like veins of lightning. Private Eli Raine lay against a column, half-conscious. The warmth spreading through him wasn't just healing. It was power. His HUD blinked back to life. Armor systems rebooted. Muscles that had refused to move now burned with purpose. "Lysera," he whispered. What are you doing?" Her eyes were blazing. The royal crest on her chest flickered with energy. "I'm remembering who we used to be." The rebel commander stepped forward, raising his weapon. "Tricks and illusions. Your people are weak." She raised her hands. The palace shook. A sphere of radiant energy exploded outward, throwing the front line of rebels against the walls like rag dolls. Eli shielded his face, watching in awe as the alien princess, the quiet, diplomatic air, now stood wreathed in the light of a dying sun. When the energy faded, Lysera was breathing hard, her body trembling. Eli staggered to his feet, armor cracked but glowing faintly with the same light that pulsed from her hands. He grinned, despite the chaos. "You sure you're not human?" She gave him a quick, shaky smile. "Don't insult me, soldier." Then the next wave came, the counterattack. Eli fired from behind the broken dais. His rifle synced to the energy signature now flowing through his suit. Each shot carried a strange afterglow, the Varan light amplifying his weapon's pulse. Lysera stood beside him, casting shimmering barriers that absorbed incoming fire, and turned it into bursts of plasma that shot back at their attackers. The rebels shouted in confusion. Their scanners couldn't even register what they were facing. One of them screamed, "She's channeling the core." The commander growled, "Impossible. That power was lost centuries ago." Eli reloaded, ducking behind cover. Sounds like someone didn't read their history. The pair fought as one, human instinct and alien grace. Every movement seemed synchronized. When Eli dove and rolled, Lysera covered him with walls of light. When she faltered, he stepped in front of her, returning fire with ruthless precision. In moments, the hall that had been a slaughter turned into a stand of legend. Even the dying guards watched from the shadows, whispering in disbelief. She fights with a human. No, she fights because of one. The collapse but power had a price. Lysera's glow began to dim. Her breath came shallow. Eli noticed instantly. "You're fading," he said. "This energy, it's tied to life force. I'm using mine to keep us alive." "Then stop. We'll figure another way." "If I stop, they'll kill us both." He slammed his rifle against the wall in frustration. "Damn it, you don't get to die after I just saved you." Lysera smiled faintly. "You humans always think saving someone once makes them safe forever." Before he could argue, the commander roared and charged, swinging a plasma blade. Eli pushed Lysera aside and caught the strike on his half-melted forearm plate. Sparks exploded. Pain ripped through him, but he held. "You're not touching her," he growled. The commander snarled, pressing harder. "You think you can stop me, human?" Eli's armor hummed again, Lysera's energy coursing through him like liquid fire. He twisted, disarmed the blade, and drove his fist into the commander's chest plate. The impact cracked armor. The alien fell back, dazed. Lysera raised her hands again, light pulsing violently. "Eli, move!" He dove aside just as she released a final, desperate burst of power. It wasn't a beam this time, and it was a wave. A storm. The explosion tore through the throne room. Every rebel left standing was thrown through the broken arches into the outer courtyard. Silence followed, thick and unreal. When the dust cleared, Eli crawled toward Lysera. She was on her knees, pale, barely conscious. Hey, stay with me," he said, his voice shaking. She looked up, eyes dimming but warm. "Did we win?" "Yeah," he said softly. For now, she smiled faintly. "Then, it was worth it." He caught her before she collapsed completely. Her head rested against his shoulder, light flickering in her silver hair like dying embers. Outside, the night sky of Varan burned, ships clashing in orbit. But in that broken hall, a legend had just been born. A dying princess and a human soldier, the first two hearts to beat as one in the war that would decide the fate of two civilizations. The fires of the throne room had dimmed to embers. The battle was over, for now. Private Eli Raine knelt beside Princess Lysera, her pale form trembling faintly in the soft glow of her fading aura. The once pristine marble floor beneath them was scorched black, cracked like glass under too much strain. Eli pressed 2 fingers to the pulse at her neck. Weak. Too weak. "Come on, princess. You don't get to quit now," he muttered. Her eyelids fluttered. "The core. It's fading. I used too much. Then I'll find you help." "No. The medics won't reach us in time." Eli's throat tightened. Around them, smoke drifted lazily upward, painting thin ghosts in the fractured light. He looked up at the shattered ceiling, stars gleaming faintly beyond the smoke. Somewhere up there, his unit was fighting for control of orbit. The human fleet had orders. Hold the palace at any cost. He'd held it. But at a cost far heavier than they'd ever meant. A broken promise. The radio crackled. "Raine, this is Sergeant Coran. Status." Eli keyed the comm, his voice rough. "Princess alive. Hostiles neutralized. Need evac ASAP. Negative, Raine, Corin replied. Drax ships are dropping reinforcements on the east courtyard. You're surrounded. So send a shuttle through the west gate. It's gone. Blown to hell. You need to move on foot. Eli looked at Lysera. She was barely conscious, her breathing shallow. Move her through open ground with no cover. Impossible. Corin's voice came again, lower this time. There's one more thing, soldier. Command authorized Operation Nightfall. Eli froze. He knew that code. Nightfall meant a purge strike. An orbital bombardment to erase the palace and everything in it. No witnesses, no relics, no risk of the core falling into enemy hands. You're bombing us? He whispered. We don't have a choice. The Drax have control of the upper hangars. The order stands. Evac window closes in 20 minutes. Static swallowed the line. Eli stared at the comm, disbelief turning to fury. He looked down at Lysera, the alien princess who had given her life to save his, who had trusted him when her people barely trusted humanity at all, and now his command was going to kill her. He clenched his fists. Not happening, the Val Lysera stirred faintly. What did they say? They're sending help, he lied. Her eyes searched his face. She was too weak to question him, but she smiled faintly as if she wanted to believe. I knew you wouldn't abandon me. Never. Eli lifted her gently into his arms. Her skin was cold, light fading from her markings. He started toward the side corridor, the one she'd pointed out before the battle. Each step echoed through the ruined halls. The once glorious corridors of the Varen Palace were now filled with debris and silence. Lysera's voice was barely a whisper. You could still leave me, Eli. Save yourself. And break a promise? Not my style, her lips curved faintly. Humans, strange creatures, always tying your hearts to hopeless causes. Guess that's what makes us dangerous. The escape. They reached the end of the corridor, a sealed blast door leading into the mountain tunnels beneath the palace. Eli forced it open using the emergency crank. The sound echoed like thunder. Beyond the door, a faint tunnel stretched into darkness. He stepped inside just as the first tremor rolled through the ground. The orbital strike had begun to warm its cannons. The sky above would soon burn. Eli laid Lysera gently on the tunnel floor, then activated his comm again. Command, this is Raine. You drop that strike and you'll kill the Varen heir. She's alive. Repeat, she's alive. Cancel Nightfall. Silence. Then a cold voice. Admiral Wren. Your orders are to evacuate, soldier. The political risk is too great. The risk? You're about to start a war that'll never end. You knew the stakes when you signed on. Eli stared at the comm device. Then slowly he crushed it under his boot. Not this time. He turned back to Lysera. Her hand weakly found his wrist. You're defying your command. For me? You took a strike meant for peace, he said softly. Now it's my turn to protect it. Outside, the ground began to tremble harder. Distant thunder of engines preparing to fire. Eli adjusted her position against his chest, gripping his rifle tight. I promised you'd live, he whispered, and I'm going to make damn sure you do. He started down the tunnel, toward the unknown, toward the mountains, toward survival. Behind him, the sky of Varen flared white. The human fleet had fired, and the legend of the man who defied his own kind had just begun. The mountains shuddered. A white light swallowed the night behind them, so bright it burned through the cracks in the tunnel walls. Then came the sound. A deep, rolling thunder that wasn't sound at all but vibration, the kind that made bones ache. Private Eli Raine didn't look back. He couldn't. The orbital strike had begun. He held Princess Lysera close as they stumbled deeper into the escape tunnels, half-blinded, the air thick with dust. Every tremor sent pebbles cascading from the ceiling. They're burning it, she whispered weakly. Yeah, he said bitterly. Everything. Her light, once brilliant, now flickered like a dying flame. The energy she'd used to save him was killing her slowly, and yet she still tried to walk. You should go, she murmured. Humans, oh, they won't forgive you for this. Then they can put me on trial, he said. But I'm not handing you over to anyone. He tightened his grip, half carrying, half dragging her through the dark. The tunnel sloped downward into ancient rock. Somewhere far ahead, a faint current of wind whispered. An exit. The collapse. The next explosion tore through the ground above them. A wave of dust and debris slammed through the tunnel, knocking them both to the floor. Rocks fell, shattering like glass. Eli shielded Lysera with his body. The world roared, then went silent except for the crackle of settling rubble. He coughed, lungs burning. "Princess, you okay?" No answer. He turned her over. Her pulse and still there, faint. He felt a flash of relief strong enough to hurt. "Don't do that," he whispered. "Don't go quiet on me." Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused. "Why are you doing this?" "You could have left." "You should have left," he almost laughed, a hollow sound. "You really don't get humans, do you?" "We were told. You fight only for advantage, for conquest." "Maybe some do," he said, brushing dust from her hair. "But most of us, we fight because someone has to. Because someone matters. Doesn't have to make sense." She stared at him, and for a heartbeat her lips trembled like she wanted to say something more, but her strength gave out again. The betrayal from above hours passed. The tunnel air grew thin. Eli found a narrow alcove, set her down gently, and took a long breath. His wrist comm still blinked faintly, fragments of Alliance transmission slipping through the interference. "Raine is AWOL. Nightfall confirmed successful. Recover remains if possible." He closed his eyes, jaw tightening. They'd already written him off. "A traitor." "You really did it, Command," he muttered. "You bombed your own." He looked back at Lysera. "Guess it's just us now." He unsealed his last stim pack and injected it into her wrist. The nanofluid glowed faintly as it entered her bloodstream. Her breathing steadied, but her eyes stayed closed. The rescue signal Eli rummaged through his gear. His communicator was fried, but the beacon core still worked. If he could modify it to send a shortwave pulse, maybe, just maybe, someone would pick them up. He got to work. Fingers numb, blood crusted under his armor joints. The air stung his lungs, static crackled from the beacon. A faint ping answered from somewhere outside the mountain. Not human, but Varen. Eli froze. The princess's people were still alive. "You hearing this, princess?" he whispered. "Your people might be coming." Her eyes fluttered open. "If they find you here, they'll think you captured me. Then I'll convince them otherwise. They'll kill you before you can speak." He smiled weakly. "Then I'll die honest." The moment between worlds, the tunnel began to glow. Faint blue light filtering from the far exit. They'd reached the end. Eli lifted Lysera once more. Every step felt heavier than the last. His armor servos whined, his legs shaking. Outside the tunnel mouth, dawn was rising over the mountains. The sky burned red from the orbital fires, clouds still glowing from the bombardment. And above it all, two fleets faced each other across the stratosphere, Human Alliance and Varen Dominion, one spark away from open war. Eli stared up, breathing hard. "Guess this is where it ends," he murmured. Lysera stirred in his arms. Her voice was barely a whisper. "No, this is where it begins." He looked down. Her hand rested against his chest. The same soft light, and faint but growing, that flickered again between her fingers. "I gave you part of my life," she said. "And now, you carry my mark." A small glowing symbol pulsed under his armor over his heart, the crest of House Varen. "What does it mean?" he asked. "It means you're one of us now." And as the wind carried the echo of engines above, Eli realized something impossible. He was now an enemy to both sides, the human who saved an alien princess, marked by her power, hunted by his own command, but he didn't care. Because for the first time in his life, his heart was exactly where it belonged. The mountain dawn was silent. Too silent. Ash drifted through the pale morning light like gray snow. From the cliffs below, what remained of the Varen capital smoldered in ruin. The palace nothing but a crater of glass and twisted metal. Private Eli Raine stood at the edge of the mountain path, cradling Princess Lysera in his arms. The cold wind bit through his broken armor. Above, two distant fleets faced one another in tense silence. Human and Varen ships, each waiting for a reason to fire. One wrong move, and the stars themselves would burn. "They'll be looking for us," Lysera whispered weakly. "Yeah," Eli said. "Both sides. You defied your command. They'll call you a traitor. Let them." He shifted her weight and started down the narrow path. The slopes were steep, scattered with black crystal shards from the bombardment. Every step was pain, but he didn't stop. Not until they reached the valley, alive, unseen. Wanted by all by midday, Eli found a cave overlooking the valley. The remains of a downed shuttle smoldered nearby, wreckage from the orbital strike. He scavenged what he could. Ration packs, a heat cell, an emergency beacon half melted from the blast. He built a small fire, its glow faint against the cave wall. Lysra lay nearby, her breathing steady but shallow. The light markings on her skin had dimmed almost completely. Eli sat beside her, listening to the comm scanner he'd salvaged. 2 different frequencies battled through the static. Alliance command to all units. Subject Raine is to be apprehended on sight. Classified as desertion and treason. Baron guard to all units, the heir lives. Human aggressor reported at her side. Engage with lethal force. Eli smirked bitterly. Guess I'm making friends everywhere I go. Lysra's voice was soft but clear. You could still leave. Find your own kind. Say I took you hostage. You think they'd believe that? He said. No, she admitted. But you'd live. Not without you. She looked at him for a long moment as if seeing him for what he truly was. Not a soldier, not a human, just Eli. You risked everything for me, she said. Why? He leaned back against the stone, staring at the gray sky. Because I saw what you were trying to do. Peace. Real peace. And I couldn't just let it die. Even when your people said to kill me, especially then. Echoes of pursuit by nightfall, the valley was alive with searchlights. Human drones hummed across the ruins, scanning for heat signatures. Farron scouts glided on anti-grav wings above the clouds, their armor gleaming like shards of silver moonlight. Eli crouched low at the cave mouth, rifle ready. The glow of the mark on his chest pulsed faintly beneath his armor. Lysra's crest alive with her energy. Lysra stirred. They're close, she whispered. I can sense them. Then we move, he said. He slung her onto his back, tightened the straps, and slipped into the shadows. The mark on his chest flared once faintly, guiding him through the darkness. They moved through burned forests and broken cities, avoiding scanners and patrols. Each time they nearly got caught, something, instinct, fate, or the strange new bond between them, pulled them just out of sight. But every hour, the pursuers drew closer. The moment of decision, at dawn on the 3rd day, they reached the ruins of an old observatory. Half its dome was gone, but the view stretched across the world, blackened plains, smoke rising where the capital once stood. Lysra's strength was nearly gone. She could barely speak. You can't keep running, she whispered. Don't plan to, Eli said. We send a message. He pointed to the ancient transmitter dish, still half intact. If I can boost its power, we can broadcast to both fleets at once. That will expose us. Good, he said. It's time they hear the truth. Lysra's eyes widened. You'll die for this. Maybe, he said, smiling faintly. But maybe they'll finally stop killing each other long enough to listen. He began working on the console, rewiring, patching, connecting the beacon core he'd carried from the tunnels. Sparks jumped. Systems came online one by one. Lysra sat up weakly, watching him. Her heart ached. This man, this reckless, impossible human, was willing to stand against everyone just to protect what was right. And as the old machine hummed to life, she reached out and placed her hand over his. If this is the end, she said softly, then let it be together. He met her gaze. Always. Above them, the transmitter began to glow, its signal rising toward the fleet circling the skies. The message, of a human and a princess, outlaws of 2 worlds, was about to echo through the stars. The message of 2 hearts, the first to detect it was the ISS Valor, flagship of the Human Alliance. Its comm screens lit up in confusion. Admiral, we're receiving a signal from surface coordinates near the Varren ruins. What? From who? It's encrypted. No, it's both encryption patterns. Human and Varren code combined. The Admiral frowned. Patch it through. The screen flickered. Then, Eli's face appeared, bloodied, exhausted yet steady. Lysra sat behind him, pale but regal even in ruin. This is Private Eli Raine, of the Human Expeditionary Corps. If you're hearing this, then you've already lost too much. The princess lives, he said, glancing back at Lysra. And she's not your enemy. She tried to stop this war before it began. The Varren flagship received the same broadcast seconds later. Commanders froze as their heir appeared on screen, alive, beside a human. We were betrayed, Lysra said softly. by those who wanted profit, not peace. They ignited a war built on lies. We've seen the truth, Eli continued, and I'll die to make sure you do too. He lifted the charred beacon core into view, the crest of both nations glowing on its surface. You can end this. Right here. Right now. Static swallowed the transmission for a heartbeat. Then Eli's final words came through, raw and shaking. Remember this. Humanity isn't perfect, but we try. And sometimes trying means standing between the ones who can't. Then the signal cut to black. The price of truth. The fleets above the planet held their fire. No one moved. For a long, endless moment, the void was silent. Then the orders came. First from the Varan flagship. Stand down. Then from the human admiral. Cease fire. All ships cease fire. The war ended in a whisper, not an explosion. The last light down on the surface, the observatory burned. The transmitter had overloaded completely. Energy flaring through the ruined dome, consuming metal and stone alike. Eli staggered, smoke and light swirling around him. Lizera tried to reach him, but the floor had already collapsed. Eli, she screamed. He turned back, a faint smile breaking through the blood and ash. Told you, we'd make them listen. Then the explosion took him. The blast was brief, silent against the roar of the storm. When the smoke cleared, only the mark of the two crests remained scorched into the ground. Varan and human, intertwined. Aftermath weeks later, peace negotiations began aboard a neutral station orbiting the ruined world. Both fleets withdrew. Both governments swore to rebuild. At the ceremony, the Varan princess, now Queen Lysera, stood before the gathered leaders. Her voice trembled, but her words carried through the hall. One man stood between hate and hope, she said. He was neither conqueror nor savior, just human. He took the strike meant for me, and in doing so saved us all. Behind her, a statue unveiled. A simple figure of a soldier, helmet under arm, eyes lifted toward the stars. The inscription read, Eli Raine, the human who chose peace. Epilogue. Echoes beyond the stars years past. Trade flowed between worlds. Children learned the story of the man who had no rank, no fame, but enough heart to stop a war. And somewhere, beyond the rim of known space, a faint signal still pulsed in the dark, his final broadcast looping endlessly through the void. Sometimes, humanity isn't about power. It's about choosing to protect something beautiful, even when it's not your own. The message echoed through the stars, carried on every frequency, across every border. And thus began a legend whispered across 2 galaxies, of the human who took the strike meant for the alien princess, and turned death into a bridge between worlds.